Star Trek Online has a lot of enemy factions that you can fight. Some of them are pretty easy, some of them are infuriating to fight against. So I've been thinking about this for a while, and let's rank them. So here we go, Star Trek enemies tier list. Oh, side note, this is just going to be for space combat, which is why there's nothing but ships down there. So, this is separated into 4 different categories: easy win, reasonable challenge, kind of difficult, and fury-induced rage quitting. Starting with the Klingons. In space, the Klingons are very easy to defeat, though I don't think that's very reflective of how the Klingons would actually fight within lore. They're mainly really easy to fight just because you fight them at a very early level in the game. They're like the first enemy you encounter. They used to be like the very first before in the original tutorial. But then they revamped that to only feature the Borg. But yeah, like early level Klingons are very easy to fight, and they don't scale very well as you get to the higher levels, so these are a very easy enemy to defeat. And that's kind of the same for these next 3. The Orions, the Nausicaans, and the Gorn, these are technically all part of the KDF faction. They're all very similar in terms of their abilities and their strength. So honestly, all 3 of these go into easy. Next up is the Romulans. The Romulans, we're going to put these in reasonable challenge, mostly because there is one thing with the Romulans, especially whenever you're fighting like one of the D'Deridex warbirds. This can be really difficult in the early stages of the game. They like to lock on a tractor beam onto you, and then they will fire 3 high-yield plasma torpedoes at you, which is so obnoxious, and has become so much of a meme that legendary D'Deridex's starship trait was actually based off of that. So yeah, it's some people can find it to be kind of difficult, but I find it to be not as difficult because it's pretty easy to take out those torpedoes as long as you're using like fire at will or scatter volley, or even just like the point defense console off of that one version of the Akira. So there are ways to counteract those torpedoes. The Borg, these are also going to go in reasonable challenge. They're not like the scary enemy that they're supposed to be in lore. I mean I've run so many infected runs on in Star Trek Online. The Borg are just so easy. All they do is just tear down your shields and hold you in a tractor beam. Anything else is just kind of eh. Though they do sometimes fire off those really big invisible torpedoes, though I think that's just like an ISE thing. But yeah, I'm going to put these in reasonable challenge. I don't think these should go any higher. The Federation. If you are a Klingon character or a Klingon allied character, you are probably going to fight the Federation at some point or another, and they're kind of in the same spot as the Klingons in Star Trek Online. They're an early level faction. They are pretty easy to fight. The Cardassians. These guys can be a pain in the butt sometimes because some of their ships have feedback pulse, which feedback pulse is the worst. It is the worst if you are flying an energy weapon build. I'm going to put these in kind of difficult. More than that, in the early levels, these can be kind of a pain too, because the Keldon class ships have photonic fleet on them, so they can just summon, 4 more Galore class ships that will all fight for them. It can be kind of a pain. The Breen, I'm also going to put in kind of difficult because so many of them are capable of draining your energy. This is another thing that could be a huge pain for certain build types, like energy weapon builds or science builds. You need your power where it is, so if the Breen are siphoning it off, that's really obnoxious. So yeah, we're going to leave the Breen in kind of difficult. They'd be on like the low end of kind of difficult, but I don't think reasonable challenge. I don't think they're suitable for reasonable challenge. I think they are meant to be kind of a pain in the ass, but they're like a low level pain in the ass, if that makes sense at all. The Dominion, these guys are a cakewalk. They really don't hold up to what they do within like the shows and whatever. Yeah, the Dominion really aren't as scary as they are in Deep Space Nine, so I'm gonna put them in reasonable challenge, but they're definitely not as easy as say like a lot of the early level enemy factions. We're gonna go with Tholians in reasonable challenge as well. Mainly the big thing with them is the Tholian webs, which are easy to counteract with fire at will or scatter volley, or really any sort of spread ability. And the dreadnoughts are capable of like teleporting you and then putting you in that like different Tholian web cannon thing. That one's kind of a pain, but you can escape that pretty easily with evasive maneuvers before it hits you with that. The Alachi, we're going to put in reasonable challenge as well. These guys aren't too difficult. They do like to jump around a little bit with that mycelial jump thing, which is a more recent thing. That wasn't in there when the Alachi were first introduced in the game. Their whole mycelial connection wasn't introduced until much later in Star Trek Online. So yeah, that was interesting. It's kind of shaken up the Alachi a little bit, which has been kind of nice, but it hasn't made them a huge challenge. It's just made them kind of annoying, but not like, fury-induced rage quitting annoying. The Fakiri are kind of in a similar spot as the Alachi. They're not super difficult to fight against. They just have some annoying abilities that just make them a little obnoxious. They have that like weird fake cloaking device that makes them invulnerable to enemy fire and makes them like unable to be targeted, but they can still shoot at you. So you're just kind of left there sitting there like, hi, this is annoying. I'd like to shoot at you, but you can't. So that's kind of the one big thing with the Fakiri. But beyond that, they're pretty easy to fight against. The Kazon, I mean, do I even just need to say anything? It's the freaking Kazon. The Malon are kind of in a similar spot. I almost didn't put the Malon on here because you really don't encounter them all that much. And that was another thing too. I didn't put every single enemy faction on here. You might notice like the Sona aren't on here. I mainly wanted to stick to factions that you will encounter more than once. And really the Sona are only in like one episode. And whereas most of these you'll encounter at least in like recurring content in like TFOs, multiple episodes, patrols, stuff like that. Whereas the Malon kind of barely fit into there. I'm pretty sure there are some patrols and more than one episode where you encounter them, but even then they're not that big of a deal. The gas clouds that they put out can be a little obnoxious, but those are very easy to fly out of, so they're not that big of a threat. The Voth, I'm a little hesitant. I'm going to put them in kind of difficult because they have that annoying invulnerability shield, which on the higher level dreadnoughts actually can function as almost like a pseudo feedback pulse because it'll redirect damage back toward you, so that can be kind of obnoxious. Plus, the Voth are freaking everywhere, so yeah, I think kind of difficult kind of suits them. We'll go with that. The Hirogen. The Hirogen, on the other hand, they are in fury-induced rage quitting. It's not that they're super difficult to defeat, it's that they have this one ability that is unbelievably annoying. Subnucleonic beam, or what we commonly call as just subnuke, which is capable of just disabling your entire ship for several seconds. And it's if you're up against like a huge group of these things, that can be insanely frustrating because they will just beat the crap out of you, especially if you're on like elite. So yeah, the Hirogen, if it weren't for Subnuke, these things wouldn't be that powerful, but Subnuke makes them insanely overpowered, and they drive me absolutely insane. I hate it. Ooh, the Vodwar. We're gonna put these in kind of difficult. They can be, I would say, like the high end of kind of difficult, because those Polaron barrages can be absolutely brutal, especially if you're fighting a lot of them, but these are a manageable threat. They don't have anything that is gonna like critically disable your ship like some of these other guys have, so you can manage these guys pretty well. They're meant to be like a high level difficult kind of enemy too. It can be kind of annoying fighting them in like story modes, especially if you're not like leveled properly, but you can manage these guys fairly well if you know what you're doing. The Iconians. This is another one where I'm a little torn. It's either going to go in kind of difficult or fury-induced rage, because they're not insanely difficult. You can manage these kind of like with the Vodwar, but they do have that EMP pulse probe, which will disable your entire ship. But unlike with Subnuke, you can counteract that with some sort of point defense console or just fire at will or scatter volley. They are destructible, so you can go after them, but you got to be kind of quick. So if you're way too close into it, those will just go right on you and you'll just be disabled and it'll be really obnoxious. But yeah, that's why you want to keep your distance with them, but you don't want to keep too much of a distance because there is like a damage penalty for distance, especially with energy weapons. So I'm thinking kind of difficult. I'm not going to go fury-induced rage, but they're close. Like, they're close. I guess it would really depend on what sort of mood I'm in and how many times I've had to fight the Iconians for which category those are going to go in, but I'm going to throw them in kind of difficult, but like the high end of kind of difficult. So really call them pretty difficult instead of kind of. The Krenim, I think, will go in Hmm. The Krenim are kind of underpowered, in my opinion. They really should have more power on them, but I think that's partially because they were released in a time before temporal abilities were released, so they should have more temporal abilities, which would be more powerful. But they just have these intel abilities that, I mean, not to knock intel, it's just the ones they have just aren't like super powerful, or I think super thematic to these ships. And it's just the Krenim have always been like a victim of just when they were released, because the temporal specialization hadn't been released yet, so, and they've never gone back to like revamp these guys or even the playable ships for the Krenim to include temporal stuff, which I always thought was kind of a shame. But you know, that takes time, and time is money, and money is power, and power is pizza. Does that make sense? Yeah, Krenim we're gonna put in. I'm gonna put them in easy. They're not super difficult. I'm gonna put them in easy. I don't know why I skipped over the sphere builders, but honestly, their powers are probably more accurate to what I would have put on the Krenim, because they have most of the temporal abilities, mostly because they were introduced when temporal was still pretty new. Even then, though, I'm still going to put them in pretty easy. They are not a difficult enemy, though. Of course, you don't really encounter them all that much. No, you know what? No, I would still put them in pretty easy. The ones I would put in reasonable challenge are the Nakul. The Nakul, they have some obnoxious abilities. They've got that temporal like shield thing. That's not a temporal shield, but it's like that phase clone thing. I forget what you call it, but you know, it makes a copy of the ship, but it's really easy to destroy. It's just kind of obnoxious, but it's easy to get around, especially if you have something that's like you know, fire will or any sort of spread ability. This is why I hate single target builds. There's, you know, spread abilities are so much better. The Herc, I'm gonna put them in kind of difficult, because the higher level ships you get with them, they also get like an obnoxious energy or an obnoxious invulnerability shield on some of their ships, and plus the little Herc swarmers, they love to stick in your aft arc. So if you're flying like a forward facing build, they can be kind of a pain to put up with. So yeah, I think kind of difficult works for them. And we're going with the same thing with the Zenkethi. This is another one that I think would be like on the high end of kind of difficult, so I'd say more like pretty difficult. But I think that's more just because people don't really know how to fight the Zenkethi. Destroy the cruisers first. That's all you got to do, because the cruisers are the ones that give off that invulnerability shield to the other ships. So just target the cruisers first, and it's fine. The other ships are pretty tanky too. Also, don't go for the aft arc on the Zenkethi. They actually have higher resistances in the aft arc. I know the temptation to go for the aft arc is very tempting with enemy ships, because you want to get into flanking position, but it's actually more beneficial to fire on the front end of the Zenkethi ships. But that's it. Target the cruisers first, fire them in the front. Try not to group them together with like gravity well, unless you have like a really high damage build. But yeah, for the most part, Zenkethi aren't that difficult. You just got to know how to fight them. They're just a little different than a lot of the other guys, but they're not a huge challenge, but they can be kind of a challenge if you don't know what you're doing. The Zenkethi are just weird, is what I'm saying, because they have a lot of different rules compared to the other factions. Like I say, just target the cruisers, fire on the forward-facing arcs on them, and try not to group them together unless you know you can do that kind of damage. Now, these guys, these are why the Fury-induced rage quitting category exists. The Mokai Klingons. They have literally the most annoying ability in the entire game. Viral Impulse Burst. Not only that, they have an insanely overpowered version of Viral Impulse Burst, because Viral Impulse Burst is a bridge officer ability that you can use on your own ships. What it does is whenever you activate it, it will, you know, any enemies that make contact with the wave that it puts off, their engines will be set to maximum, and they will just be sent, you know, shooting off across the map. Now, with the player version, it's not that powerful, so NPCs will just kind of move a little bit forward, and then they'll stop. They won't go that fast. But the version that the Mokai Klingons have, this will send you, the player, just careening off across the entire map. It is unbelievably frustrating. There is a way to counteract it by using Engineering Team, but the effect doesn't last that long. And so, like, by the time you actually like are able to hit Engineering Team, at least in my experience, you're already like halfway through there. So you've already by the time I usually hit it, it's already like 4 seconds into the 5 total seconds that it's active, and it's insanely frustrating. Anytime I fight the Mokai in like some sort of patrol, like in ninth rule, usually I'll just leave the patrol because I don't feel like putting up with the Mokai's bullshit. I cannot stand that ability. It is so overpowered. It's not fun. It is not fun to play against, and I hate it, and I refuse to do it. Okay, the Terrans. These, we're gonna go with these in kind of difficult. They have feedback pulse, which can be annoying. Can be really annoying. Honestly, sometimes I would probably put these in Fury-induced rage quitting, but they're not as bad as some of these. Basically, they have difficult abilities here. These two in here, they have troll abilities. Giving troll abilities to NPCs is just a dick move. But yeah, the Terrans, they are fairly powerful. Like I said, they got feedback pulse. They also have torp spread 3, which can hit pretty hard, which can be annoying. But like if you're using like a mixed tank build, or if you're running with someone who's running a tank build, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So yeah, the Terrans, they hit hard, but you can deal with them. So I would put them in kind of difficult. The last two are fairly new factions to the game. These are variations on the Borg. First, we got the Borg Kingdom, or the Mirror Borg, and I would put these in the same category as the normal Borg. They have some different abilities. They use a different damage type, but I wouldn't say that they're significantly different from the normal Borg, at least in space. Ground, the Mirror Borg are definitely a bit more of a challenge, but in space, in space, Borg are Borg, and that's going to be the same with the Control Borg as well. Again, they're not a huge challenge comparatively, but at the same time, we haven't had a lot of time to encounter a lot of these. You know what? No, I'm going to change this up a little bit because no, never mind. These are going to stay here. I'll just note that the Mirror Borg, they have that one sphere that can like self-destruct, which can be annoying because it hits very hard. But as long as you like keep your distance and you know like, hey, it's gonna explode, like you can see the effect going off. Just keep your distance away from the spheres, but I don't think that's enough to put them into kind of difficult because it's just the spheres. And spheres have always been kind of a pain in the butt because they, on the normal Borg, they have that torpedo spread, which can be a pain. But yeah, I would keep those in reasonable challenge, but I wouldn't put them into kind of difficult. And it's going to be the same with the Control Borg. So yeah, that's about where I'm going to leave this. Like I said, there are probably some other factions I could have included. I just wanted to include the ones that you fight on a fairly regular basis, or at least like fight repeatedly throughout the story, or TFOs or patrols. Like I said, I didn't include factions like the Sona because you literally only fight them in like 1 or 2 episodes. And the Remans I didn't include because they're basically just the same as the Romulans. So I didn't see the point in including both of them because they work pretty much the same. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with these answers. I feel like there's some room for some of these. I feel like some of you would probably move like the Vodwar, maybe the Zenkethi, into Fury-induced rage quitting. But for the most part, I'm happy with this. I feel like this represents what I think of these factions fairly well. Anyway, let me know what you think down below. Do you think I should have put these in different categories, or do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments. I'll also link this tier list down below in the pinned comment, so you could fill it out yourself if you like. So yeah, that'll be down there as well. And while you're down there, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. If you'd like to further support the channel, hit the join button to become a member, or find the link to the merch store down below. Or you, what's the other thing? Use my creator code on the Epic Game Store, or use any of the affiliate links down below in the pinned comment. Man, can you tell I'm really tired? I'm sorry, I'm recording this at like 7 in the morning and I've been up all night. I know, typical me, but yeah, do all the outro stuff. I really appreciate it. But either way, thank you so much for watching. My name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time. Oh, and happy holidays to everyone. That's a thing that's happening because it's the end of December.